Welcome to an exploration of storytelling. My name is Moihaki, and I'm enamored by the power and potential that stories have to change mindsets, shift norms, and bring about transformation. Take a moment and think about it. Much of what we learn and makes up our understanding of the world is defined by the stories we hear, whether it was from the folk tales we heard as a child or the videos and snippets we see each day pop up on our news or social media feeds. Stories surround us, and stories shape our perspectives. In my own journey using storytelling to build and reinforce positive narratives around identity, and as I use positive stories to bring to the fore uncelebrated aspects of my country, Kenya, a couple of key lessons have stood out for me. 1, people are hungry for the positive. 2, social media is an unprecedented arena for influencing norms, and when used with positive and strategic intent, it can actually be a force for action. 3, stories are as powerful now as they've been in the past in terms of shaping our worldview. It's only that our primary story mediums have changed. Allow me to repeat that. Stories frame our worldview, and good stories, well told, can invite us to a place of empathy, understanding, and action. Climate practitioners know how the power of a news clip from a community devastated by a hurricane can spur action in terms of thousands of people donating resources to help, or how climate activists such as Al Gore or Leo DiCaprio have used their influence to make climate change a relevant and exciting topic to new and younger audiences. Stories and storytellers have the power to bring about change at individual, collective, and even global levels. And the topic I'd like for us to explore in this session is how to translate the work in the arena of resilience into powerful stories that encourage change. Development practice is increasingly seeing a shift away from traditional reporting methods to engage audiences. And while numbers, reports, and data are still incredibly valuable tools of our trade, we're learning that enabling people to understand the why behind the work we engage in is more important than ever, and stories play a pivotal role in bringing that to life. In order to accelerate and cement social impact work, one should seek stories that move people. Essentially, those that build a strong emotional engagement, are reinforced with a rationale that connects with the daily realities of your listener, and have a clear sense of urgency that propels one into action. These 3 elements may often seem difficult to bring to life in conversations about the Anthropocene. Often, transformation work in the area of ecological resilience seems distant from individual action. Perhaps the opportunity for change is unclear, or the subject itself is presented as too abstract for an individual. So our goal then becomes how to reshape this framing to close the distance and spark imagination for action into people's hearts and minds. And it may not be as difficult as one may initially think. I'd like to introduce you to the story of Kisilu Mwasia, a Kenyan farmer who over 4 years documented the effect that climate change had on his daily life. Now, climate change is about as complex a topic as it gets. It's been researched, it's been debated, it's been dissected in myriad ways. And climate change is often the domain of scientists or environmental activists, country-level action, and UN deliberations. Kisilu, on the other hand, is about as ordinary and humble as it gets. A smallholder farmer in Kenya with a wife and 6 children, going about his business, trying to make a decent life for himself and his family. He really isn't the poster boy who comes to mind when thinking about telling the story of how to address complex system-level challenges. But on hearing his story, one comes to realize that he might just be. Kisilu's story starts off with him documenting on a small smartphone his life and challenges as a farmer. First experiencing drought, then heavy rains, losing his humble home in a torrential storm, and the story covers his transition to a person who decides to take action, first by planting trees to combat soil erosion, then becoming a tree planting advocate in his community. And through his climate diaries, he popped up on the radar of climate activists in Norway, interested in community-level resilience. And his journey began to take on a new and international twist. Eventually, Kisilu found himself attending COP21 in Paris as a climate justice warrior. Now, Kisilu's journey includes his missteps, the cost that his community work had on his family, and he willingly exposes his daily triumphs and failures in a way that brought us closer to him as an individual. His story is about resilience and adaptation that began with a personal story, then moved into the community, and then a global arena. His story is one of global climate change, told from the perspective of a farmer trying to bring forth a harvest, a father trying to provide for his family, a man trying to uphold his dignity in the face of adversity that is clearly beyond his control. It's an incredibly universal story, and it's the universality of his human experience that made his simple story so powerful and allowed it to resonate and rise to a global stage. His journey of individual resilience and his authentic desire to make a difference as a single individual has inspired thousands. And more importantly, his story shows the importance of the power of one in a journey that is often viewed as deeply complex. Today, Kisilu's work has not only inspired action within his community in Eastern Kenya, but has become a clarion call in global action for climate activists and ordinary folk just like him. I'd encourage you to take a look at this human story as it distinctly showcases how to inspire hope and positivity into a difficult subject. Kisilu's story is captured online in his climate diaries and the recently released film, Thank You for the Rain. Let's look at some of the elements that provide a strong foundation to Kisilu's story as you consider how to use the power of story in your own work. First of all, ask, why are you telling the story? Why is it important to be heard? I'd encourage you to be ruthless in your exploration of this question. If the story's importance isn't clear to you, it won't be clear to others. Are you positioning a problem and its solution? Are you sharing a challenge and you need others to join in your journey? In essence, why should the listener care? Remember that you are seeking to build a connection, and connections to your story happen when you invite your listeners on a shared journey. Which brings us to our second element. Who is the audience for your story? Your primary audience has to be clear. Why? Because as a practitioner, you no doubt will need some sort of input from them to achieve the change you seek. And if the story isn't tailored to be understood from a viewpoint that aligns with their interests, their inputs, their motivations, or their ability to make an impact, you likely will not reap the benefits that you seek. Every story can be viewed as generic, appealing to a wide range of audiences. But as a practitioner, the story that you're investing your time and resources in has to have somewhere that it is landing, and you need to design with that in mind. Whether it's the policymaker, the community activist, the climate financier, or the child whose worldview you are seeking to change, they need to be central to your design. Why? Because of the third element, your call to action. When a story has successfully bridged the social space between itself and the listener, the potential for action is not only enhanced, but activated. Suddenly, the story is no longer yours, but it's ours. By virtue of our shared humanity, the shared nature of this problem, our mutual responsibility and potential in bringing forth a solution, the clarity in which the listener's role is understood, what was your story now becomes our story, in need of the listener's input that will bring about a powerful kickstart for transformation. And these three questions provide the foundation for your story. From there, you can begin to structure the story, ensuring that it has a clear beginning, middle, and end. You can begin to explore which medium best builds a strong connection with your listener. Is it through written narrative, a photo story, documentary, or even an animated feature? Next, you can determine who best tells your story, for it might not always be best delivered from the perspective of you or your organization at the center. With these decisions made, you can begin to craft the authentic story that showcases the work that you're doing, the impact it's having, and the change you are inviting others to help make. My final words? Remember to keep it human, keep it positive, and seed some inspiration. For at heart, we all love a good story that shows us that there is hope for our collective and individual humanity. Happy storytelling!